Hi guys, welcome back. Around here we all know that there are times when protected workers actually need the rights that were given by law if we want to keep working. And so far, most of what I've talked about on the channel is stuff that you can do after your employer has discriminated against you and you have to go to EEOC for help. And that's still going to be my main focus here. But today I want to talk about something a little different and share some proactive tips that I have for safeguarding our rights. Now, the things we're talking about today probably aren't going to stop them from discriminating in the first place, but it might make it easier for you to hold them accountable when they do come for you. Okay, first thing, always believe what they do. Not just what they do to you, but what they do to their coworkers, what they do in their policies, and the way they carry those policies out. What they do tells you who they are, and it tells you what you can expect. I wasn't the first person that NASA refused to reasonably accommodate. I mean, they were doing that long before I came along, and actually I knew about it, but I never thought it would happen to me. I got blindsided, and my advice to you is don't get blindsided. Pay attention when they show you how they treat their workers. And when you see them discriminating, even if it's not against you right now, realize that one day it may be you, and prepare yourself. The next thing is to document as much of what they're doing as you possibly can. Don't tell them you're documenting, just do it. When you see them stepping on a coworker's rights, email yourself with names, dates, what happened, and how you found out about it. That way, if you end up at EEOC, you'll have that information to help you establish patterns of behavior or discriminatory intent, or do any number of things that might help your case. Whenever you see copies of policies, plans, or announcements that could potentially harm workers like you, get yourself a copy and keep it for as long as you work there. Employers announce their intentions in documents like that way more often than you might think. For example, in 2020, when NASA agreed to pay a $10 million age discrimination settlement to a group of workers over 40 who were laid off from their tenured positions at the Jet Propulsion Lab, one of the key pieces of evidence attached to their case was NASA's 2009 plan to rebalance the workforce. And that plan announced that at least half of all new hires going forward were going to be awarded to fresh-outs with degrees but no experience. And shortly after that plan was announced, JPL started laying off older workers to make room for new hires. They claimed the younger workers were more tech-savvy. In fact, the plan specifically mentioned that younger workers were more comfortable using smartphones and other devices. As if being comfortable with a cell phone somehow equated to the skill set of a person who had written software that landed the Spirit and Opportunity rovers on Mars. NASA's plan spelled out the age discrimination and the biases behind it. And without a copy of that plan, those workers would have had a harder time proving that they were targeted for layoff because of their age. Whereas having that plan made it a relative slam dunk. I mean, here's the target on my back, and it's written down right here, and it's signed by all the people who put it there. And there was this other time when the director of our installation sent out a memo saying that women were no longer considered a minority there, because we made up 35% of the workforce. So therefore, the EEO office would no longer be investigating complaints of gender discrimination. That didn't come from Congress or EEOC. I mean, he just declared it. Now, I didn't have any open EEO complaints at the time, but I'd seen enough of that culture to know that gender discrimination was still happening, and as far as I could tell, EEOC still considered it illegal. So I snagged a copy of that memo, just in case. And apparently I wasn't alone, because that memo was rescinded a little bit later. Be vigilant, and when you see them making any changes that might threaten your rights, don't turn a blind eye. Get the proof. Now, this next bit of proactive advice came to me from an old white guy who gave it to me when I was just starting at NASA. He said to keep copies of all my performance ratings and any correspondence about my performance or conduct, good or bad, for as long as I worked there. And taking his advice is probably a big part of how I made it through summary judgment. Documenting the bad means that we'll always have an accurate record of just how bad it was. And that could be helpful if our employer tries to blow it out of proportion later and use it against us. In NASA's motion for summary judgment, my boss claimed that she tried to discuss reasonable accommodation with me several times, but wasn't able to because I had severe communication issues. And to prove that I was the problem, she cited a one-time conflict with a coworker from years earlier. In their motion, NASA said that those kinds of conflicts were a common problem for me, and they were all my fault. But I'd saved my correspondence with my boss from the time it was actually happening. And in that correspondence, my boss said that she knew this wasn't a common problem for me and it wasn't my fault because this other person had problems with a lot of other people besides me. And because I had the documentation to show my AJ that NASA had changed its story, he decided that he had to assess my boss's credibility. And to do that, he had to have a hearing. Summary judgment wasn't appropriate. So sorry, NASA. And documenting the good stuff, like performance appraisals, award nominations, thank you letters, and attagirls, that stuff means that we'll have ammunition in case our employer tries to make up lies later about our performance or conduct. And we'll always have something that shows we weren't a total piece of work. If your employer has legitimate concerns about your performance or conduct, then a few thank you notes may not help. But if you have a bunch of notes from your coworkers about how cooperative you are or how good you are at your job, it's going to be a lot harder for your employer just to make up problems. So there you have it. A few tips for proactively safeguarding your rights. Hope some of you can use them. I'll see you next time. Till then, take care and hang in.